you listen to reason? Will you open your eyes? It's a wonder what you'll find with an open mind. You may be surprised. Yeah, gotta get away from this illusion for the sake of the world. This delusion, it's gotta go.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Atheist Experience, otherwise known as your official Super Bowl pregame show. I am Russell Glasser, and with me today, hopefully not having a wardrobe malfunction, is Martin Wagner.
No, I didn't wear my clips today. If you told me, I would have.
Today is Sunday, February 6th, 2011. We are a live call-in public access atheist TV show based in Austin, Texas. We are available to an international audience through our live stream at ustream.tv, and apparently those are the only people who are going to be watching today. Check the website for more details about the show and our parent organization, the Atheist Community of Austin, at www.atheist-community.org. You can provide feedback for the show by visiting the unofficial show blog, Atheist Experience, one word, .blogspot.com, or email us at tv@atheist-community.org. And if you enjoy the show today, please come and join us for dinner after the show, beginning around 6 o'clock at El Arroyo. That's at 1624 West 5th Street in downtown Austin. Now, for the aforementioned international viewers who might not be in the know about curious American customs, we got this thing which we call football, which is... you know that. I'm patronizing you guys. But anyway, there's the yearly advertising extravaganza, which people say they tune in for.
Yes. It's all about the commercials.
People spend tons of money in order to produce their best and most watched commercials of the year, and there's some football going on in between. And so anyway, in past years, before the Atheist Experience was an international smash hit.
You need an echo effect every time you say that.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
International.
In past years, that would have meant that we had very few people watching, and we would have had to pad out a lot more time with ad-libbing ourselves.
You were about to say something else, weren't you?
But with well-researched material.
It's carefully rehearsed ad-libbing, yes.
But now it just means that we will get even fewer local callers than usual and more people calling in and saying, hey, I love you guys and I listen to you all the time, which is so interesting for the podcast listeners.
We have no idea what they'll say.
Yes,
they may
that's true.
Want to talk about their dog Skippy or something.
Yeah, and until we have any callers actually up on the board, well, okay, we do.
We've got one, but we can do a quick thing here.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and fill out some time to give more time for the lines to fill up by reading unrehearsed an email that we got just today. Dear Atheist Experience, I am a devout Christian who has been watching some clips of episodes from your show, and while I don't agree with your Christian bashing, your God mocking, your complete disrespect for the body of Christ, and your disregard for the spiritual realm, guilty as charged.
Yeah, okay. We'll own up to that one. Sure.
I do have to say that you did have a right to get away from the institutional, denominational so-called churches that some of you were a part of.
Oh.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
We also have a right to do the Christian bashing, God mocking, and complete disrespect for the body of Christ.
Spiritual realm mocking. Yes.
But I think she's saying she's cool with it.
Well, she's not cool with the first batch, but the last part. Yeah.
I was a part of the Romanian Orthodox Church, but I broke away from it because of their false teachings.
Oh,
and into some other false teachings. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news. I was indoctrinated by my grandmother, and I have to say that did offer some benefits, but it also brought me into an institutionalized denominational church. I was forced to go to church by my grandmother, and I ended up dreading Sunday mornings because when I was young, church seemed boring and a waste of time to me.
Perish the thought. Who would have? You don't say.
I've actually been to church like twice in the last 5 years and taken copious notes, which is probably not why most people go. Then as I got older, church seemed less terrible to me, and I could actually tolerate staying at the worship service instead of joining the other children in the playroom. Then, after a few years later, after I got caught watching pornography on the internet,
in church.
By the way, I'm not naming this person's name, so
Sure,
I'm not
yeah.
trying to embarrass somebody on the internet. We're just using your letter to fill time.
Right.
I began seeking repentance for many sins. I began seeking God in many different ways, trying to tell him how sorry I was. I then started watching the Catholic channel, EWTN, whenever I could because I thought that they had what I was looking for. I was learning from the nuns and cartoons on EWTN.
This is really a long letter. I mean, we have to read the whole thing, or can we like skip bits?
No, okay.
Yeah. Just sort of,
Well, sorry about this. You want to go off on a tangent on the sin of pornography?
No, I was just
Not really.
I mean, sure, we could do a whole hour on that. Yeah.
Okay.
But I was just going to say that it sounds like she's making the whole no, it's not about it. It's a faith, not a religion thing.
Right. I
Or
think
the,
she should not be ashamed of normal human sexuality.
Yeah.
But anyway. Let's
Unless
see,
she was
skipping
like into
ahead.
like really, goatsy type stuff, in which case that was like, yeah, be embarrassed about that. Yeah,
Now some atheists ask me, if I become a Christian, what denomination should I choose? Which I think is a rhetorical question. I skipped ahead.
Yeah, no, that's fine, but it's sort of
I
like,
think
why
this
would
is a rhetorical question
It would
when
have to be.
atheists ask it, because what they're asking is, even if I come to the conclusion that there is a God, why should I conclude that your particular flavor of it is right?
Exactly. Because you would think that, if there was this one truth, we have this religion with something like 38, I hear the figure 38,000 individual Christian sects.
Yes.
I've not actually seen a reference to fully confirm that.
And many of them mutually believe that the others are going to hell.
Right, but yeah, it is true that there are all these little branch, splitters, and you get the People's Front of Judea, Judean People's Front, that sort of thing going on.
Right.
And so, who has the right version if this is all one truth?
And a point that we've made before is that science generally tries to converge on one answer. Like, there are disputes among scientists about whether it's this way or that way, but generally it tends to be that over time there's a way to check whether one or the other is correct, and everybody sort of narrows down to like maybe a handful of possible interpretations before eliminating the alternatives entirely for the most part. Religion doesn't do that. I mean,
No.
there's not
Religion does the
38,000 different interpretations of gravity because you can check on those.
Yeah. Well, that's what. Science is about eliminating things until you get to the right answer. Whereas religion is just, since you're making it all up anyway, it's all about
Religion is just
what are you seeking?
starting with what you consider the right answer.
Yeah. What kind of? It's all about sort of fulfilling these weird emotional, psychological needs in people.
Right,
And then it's so at that point you just embrace whatever appeals to that personal need. And
So-
it's not about objective facts and what the evidence does or does not show to support them.
So this last bit, she says, well, the answer is none. Denomination, that is. Just seek God and he'll show himself. Maybe not right away, but when he wants to, because he's in charge. And I would have to say, not choosing a particular sect doesn't fix the problem. In fact, it makes it worse, because that's how more new sects get started.
Yeah.
Once
She's
they
now
decide
become
that every single concept of God that everybody has is right, and the voices in her head are the ones that are that tell the actual truth. We've got 38,001.
Yeah, this person has just become a sect with one member.
Yeah. Congratulations.
A new one. Yeah, that's it.
Now I know, because your lack of belief, you're not believing in any of this.
God,
But God can show himself to you even in your doubt. He may not come to you when or even how you're expecting, but you will see him either in life or afterlife.
Well, that narrows it down, doesn't it?
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
It's like, let's cover all the bases so that you don't actually have to provide any kind of evidence for that claim.
Keep doing what you're doing. Bash this institutional building called church. Bash its followers for their delusional beliefs. Bash the Pope. I don't care. But I tell you, there is a God, and he sent his son, named Jesus, to die on a cross for sin, so that humans and God may be together again.
Which is ridiculous on its face, but we'll keep going.
Now, she started out, I mean, people tell us we're offensive for all the bashing we do, but this person, I mean, you know, is highlighting a fact that religions all bash each other.
Yeah. Again,
they're just upset that it's them.
Yeah. But then in the end, what does she offer again? It's the same apology, it's the same Jesus myth that all of these religions and denominations and institutionalized churches that she's dismissing are offering. You know, God has a son, he sent his son to die for your sins. It's the same story.
Right. And the question, I mean, you know, really...
You just think it's better because you've, you know,
really
divorced the word church from it all.
The only main question in all of atheism and skepticism is, how do you know?
Yeah. Yeah, is any of this stuff actually true? Can you demonstrate that it's true? How can you demonstrate that this God you're telling me about exists in reality and not just in your imagination?
Yeah, and when people ask, what is your best argument for atheism or against God, that's really what you have to come back to over and over again is, how do you know?
Yeah. Well.
Anyway, that was fun, and we've got Mark in Austin,
Mark in
Texas.
Austin, who is local. We'll start with local fellow. Good.
There you are. Mark. Hi.
I have a lot of experience with theology and the academic side of Christianity, so I thought I would call in and have a polite debate with you.
That's fantastic. I'm seeing on the board here, are calling on behalf of your church?
A lot of the youth at my church have been watching your program.
Thank you.
And while myself and the parents find it amusing, we are worried that the youth are being tricked and deceived by your program.
Oh dear.
Well, we don't
I think you're on to us. Uh-oh. Yeah.
No, seriously.
My congregation is watching, so please be polite. Last time someone from our congregation called, your host, Jeff, was wild.
Jeff can be a bit of a firebrand, I'll admit that.
You're going to need to, we're feeding back.
We've got some feedback.
Yeah, if you're watching on your television while you're talking to us...
We've been having some problems with studio stuff for the last few weeks, so...
Because also, if you're watching the program and you have your television turned up, sometimes that will feed back into the phone also. Okay. So you don't want to do that.
Well, anyway...
You know, well, the rule of this program is that you get what you give. So, you know, we're all about having polite discussions. So, you know, but it works both ways. So.
And so, have you mentioned what your church is?
Mark,
Pardon, I can't hear you very well.
Oh,
okay.
Have you mentioned what your church is? Would you like to plug them?
My church is the Austin Stone.
Okay.
And,
hi, Austin Stone. Go on.
We are a New Testament church.
Okay.
Okay, so what's your question? Or what would you like to talk about today?
Well, my question is, first of all, is it true that on your show you made a comparison between God and Bigfoot?
Oh, very likely, yes.
Yeah, we quite possibly have done that, yeah.
Okay, first of all, it is true there is no Bigfoot because there simply are no transitional forms. There is a $10,000 cash prize for anyone who presents a transitional form to
I think
Ray Comfort.
I think Ray Comfort.
Oh, you're one of this batch. All right.
Right. Okay. I think you'll find that the reason that we brought up Bigfoot is because people frequently ask us, why don't you believe in God? And can you prove that there's no God? And the kind of response that we usually throw out there is, it doesn't have to be Bigfoot, it could be leprechauns or fairies or unicorns. But the question is, do you believe, you don't believe in Bigfoot, but can you prove that there's no Bigfoot?
Well, I think you are correct that Bigfoot is not real. However, God is real.
Right, but you can't prove that Bigfoot doesn't exist. That is probably the point that somebody was trying to make by bringing it up earlier.
Yes.
So
Okay.
what we're saying, I'm sorry, I should draw these lines a little better. When we say that we're atheists and we don't believe that God exists, the point that we're making is that in order to demonstrate that something like a God exists, the burden of proof rests on the person making the claim. So if you wanted to make me believe that Bigfoot exists, you would have to first present some pretty convincing reasons why you would believe in Bigfoot. Now, you don't believe in Bigfoot. You do believe in this omnipotent presence in the universe. And all we like to say is basically, how do you know? What kind of evidence would you have about that?
Now, this is where you start to lose your credibility with people who have watched the program before.
Well, I'm sorry about that.
Because Matt Slick already did a proof for God.
Yeah, and
you might remember it from the episode he called in and embarrassed Matt Dillahunty, your organization's president.
That's really
funny.
not how we saw it. Actually, what's interesting is that after that episode happened, he went back and changed the web page where he was making that argument because Matt demonstrated that his argument didn't work.
Right. Well,
because the point is that you could take Matt's. I wasn't on that actual program, but we watched it. You could take
Matt Slick.
Yeah, you could take Matt Slick's entire. We're familiar with the transitional argument for God, and there was that whole program about it. The problem with it, as Matt Slick presents it on the CARM website, is that you can take his entire argument word for word, right? Every single one of his points, as it's outlined, and even if you were to grant him, for the sake of argument, every one of his premises, although on that program we pointed out where some of the, Matt Dillahunty pointed out where some of the premises were flawed, even if you took his entire argument as written and said, all right, I'll grant you this, I'll grant you this, I'll grant you this, I'll grant you this, you get right down to his conclusion at the very bottom where he says, and we call this creative force or whatever, we call this thing God, right? When you get to his conclusion, you can take his entire argument, you can replace the word God in the conclusion with Zeus, with the flying spaghetti monster, with any mythical being that you care to dream up. And the argument works just as well. All right? You can take his entire argument as worded and come up with the same conclusion, and we call this being the invisible magic space pixie. And the argument works just as well. So that essentially is why the argument failed. And what Matt Slick did was...
I think that Matt Slick's point was that everything is physical or conceptual. So absolute
But do you agree with me that you can...
not physical.
But do you agree with me that you can do that with his argument?
And that means they're concept in God's mind.
Well, how do you distinguish God's... Well, first off, how do you distinguish God's mind as a thing that actually exists?
Well, that is how you prove that God's mind exists.
But as I just explained to you,
the evidence from the Bible will prove that the Christian God exists.
But what I just brought up, right, was that the transcendental argument for God, as Matt Slick had written on the CARM website, in its exact wording, you can replace the word God with the name of any mythological being that you choose, and the argument works just the same. And you didn't disagree with me when I said that, so shall I take that as agreement that the argument works just well as the transcendental argument for anything?
It proves that there's a mind.
How does it even prove?
Can I change track? I'm
all right.
sorry.
No, I just want to say, but you agree then that the argument can be used just as well to prove any mythological being as well as God. Am I right or am I wrong when I suggest that?
It proves there is some God, then the Bible proves the God is the Christian God.
Well, how do you get from the wording of that argument to the Bible? I mean, where's the link from that argument to the Bible? Because again, you could say, you could take the argument, as I've just suggested, replace God with Zeus, right? And then you could say, the argument proves that there is a God, and then Greek mythology proves that that God is Zeus. See, what you're saying to me is exactly
Greek
the same as saying that.
mythology did not have eyewitnesses.
Well, I mean, as far as we know, anyone who wrote
as
the
far as we
Bible, I mean, you
Yeah.
know, that came like 30 years later. But I'd also like to go back to one of the premises you were talking about earlier. You said that everything is, I'm sorry, remind me of the wording. Everything is either physical or conceptual, right? Right? Can you hear me?
Mark, can you hear Russell?
Mark.
Are you there?
Hello?
I'm not.
I'm not hearing Mark
Yeah,
anymore.
control room. Did we lose Mark? Okay.
Oh,
All right.
hang on. We're sorry about this.
Okay, technical problems. Also, earlier on, in terms of comparing God to Bigfoot, while we're waiting to get whatever issue is a problem right now.
We're going to put you on hold, Mark, and we're going to try again in 2 minutes. I'm sorry about this.
Okay. Well, Bigfoot, God, Loch Ness Monster.
I want to finish what I was saying, actually.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So, I mean, the premise of this transcendental argument is that everything is either physical or conceptual. And the idea is that if these things are to exist, then the conceptual stuff must be held in the mind of something called a God, unless there are human minds to conceive of it. So my question, and I think the approach that Matt took when Matt Slick called, was, which one is God? Is God physical or is God conceptual? Because if God is one of those or the other, then obviously the basic issue of the question has not gone away. It's just been transferred, like who's conceiving of God, or where did the physicalness of God come from? And if you say that God is neither physical nor conceptual,
then you have to identify.
Then you've undercut your own argument, because by saying everything is physical or conceptual, then you're making a special exception to the rule that you say applies to everything. And once you acknowledge that there's stuff that is neither physical nor conceptual, then the argument doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. Okay, Mark, we have no idea what happened to the audio on getting you in here. So we'd like to invite you, maybe try hanging up and calling back. And
no, don't try that.
Because that may work.
But let's check if another caller works first.
Because that could be the case.
Because
again,
the whole phone system.
You know, as you know, folks, we've had for several
been
weeks
having technical problems for a while.
We'll see if we've got him back now. For a while.
Okay, give another shot to Mark. Are you there?
None of that.
Hello.
What? Hello. I heard something.
Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah. Hi. Hello. You're on. Who's this?
This isn't Mark, is it?
No. We'll find out. Who's this? Hi.
Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, you.
Facepalm Day at Atheist Experience Television. All right.
Maybe they can't hear me again.
I don't know. Okay, caller, go ahead. Identify yourself if you can hear me.
I can kind of hear you, not real well.
Okay. All right. Well, go ahead with your question. And, even though you can't hear us, we'll try to answer you. And go ahead, ask your question, and then maybe we'll put you back on hold and answer you.
All right. I'm in an ethics class, and our professor was giving us the question of he was making the statement that science is always catching up to religion.
I would put it the other way.
Yeah. But yeah.
I would have to too, but I was wondering what would you say about that? Because what he was arguing was that women's intuition stuff, or the fact that science has been catching up to that too recently, I guess.
Well, I think I know the argument that's been made here. I mean,
Okay.
but I mean, the thing is, for instance, people will say that, not to use the Christian example, the Quran perfectly predicts the speed of light.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
and then they'll come up with some elaborate interpretation of some really quite vague verse where they can shoehorn it in and say, okay, if we pick this number and this number and this number and we multiply them out, according to what the Quran says, then we find that the Quran has a remarkably accurate prediction of the speed of light. And it's all cherry-picking concepts, right? I mean, it's all going back and, it's all going back with stuff that science has already found out, and then retrofitting it to make ancient books look like they have more knowledge than they actually do. I mean, you could do the same thing with Lewis Carroll's Jabberwocky, right? It turns out that slithy toves actually means neutrinos. For instance, people will claim that the Bible predicted that the Earth was spherical, which doesn't really tell the whole story, because according to the Bible, there is a mountain from which you can see every part of the Earth, which is not really possible on a sphere,
Right.
And like Jeff D. has always said, the Bible is the big book of multiple choice. And so if you pick some parts of it and ignore other parts of it, and you're very generous with your interpretation, then you can say that the Bible had this incredibly foresightful scientific knowledge, and ignore the fact that Genesis says, for instance, that there was light before there was sun.
Or depending which chapter of Genesis you read, I mean, you have the two contradicting creation stories right there at the beginning of the book.
Right.
All right, where Genesis 1 has one version of how creation went, and then you switch to Genesis 2.
Yeah.
Go on
and
to
you can
chapter 2,
hand wave
and then you
those
get a whole
away.
other creation story. So,
I mean, you can absolutely hand wave those away in the same way that you can hand wave Jabberwocky to sound like whatever you want. But that doesn't mean that you could have figured this stuff out going solely from the Bible and not actually applying things that we already knew before claiming that that they're things that we can find out from the Bible.
Sure. I mean, the way to confirm claims like this, and this would seem to be, either this particular professor is a theist himself, or if not, he's taking some sort of accommodationist position, which we tend to find really annoying, and said, I don't know, I have no idea. But usually the way that you can respond to these kinds of claims with, look, if science is catching up to stuff religion already knew, then point to any evidence that, for example, anyone in the 15th century knew what neutrinos were, or dark energy, or understood how to perform delicate microsurgery solely by reading scripture for their knowledge as to how to do these things.
Yeah.
If this, it's always it's curious how it's always after the scientific discovery has been made by science that the religious community turns around and says, "Oh, well, but that was always there."
Right.
We always knew how.
And
God had always revealed that.
That someday, like 100 years from now, people are going to be saying, "Look how accurately the Bible describes evolution."
Right. Yeah.
I betcha.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so if you don't, so I guess that's it, pretty much. I mean, I don't have anything.
Do you have anything else?
Yeah.
I keep looking up at where the speaker is,
Yeah,
which
I know.
I keep telling myself not to do. But
I guess
don't
not.
know.
Okay, I guess we're done with
I
that. We'll see if
feel like the sound is still not where it should be. And Mark, if you're out there, I'm really sorry.
Yeah, we didn't cut
maybe-
you off. We
Yeah.
want to talk to you.
Maybe other members of Mark's church could keep trying to call just so that somebody manages to get in.
You can also go email us at tv@atheist-community.org. You can visit the show blog, which after the program we're gonna always once again put up our daily post about this program, which will be the open comment thread to pertaining to this episode, and anybody who wants to comment there, either Mark or anyone from his church, can do so. So
Okay. Yeah. So I guess we'll go next to Joseph in Seattle. Joseph?
How you doing, sir? Am I on?
hi, yes, you are actually. We can hear you.
Hey guys, how you doing, man? I'm really glad to be on. I love your guys' show. I used to be a Christian rapper in Seattle and full-on Christian, and I started wanting to go to seminary school, start looking into studying the Word of God, and I actually got a hold of Bart Ehrman's book on accident, and it showed me the contradictions, which led me into questioning, like I always have my whole life, and kind of led me into doing my own study for the last year, kind of like you guys do, like you did when you became an atheist and start studying more on the Word of God, probably more than the Christians actually do.
You know what it is the devil influence of rap led you astray.
That must be it, yeah.
You thought it was safe to dabble in it.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said the devil influence of rap actually led you astray, even though you thought it was safe because it was Christian rap.
Exactly. The devil throws darts at you, and that's what my friends are all telling me. I go, yeah, right, he probably threw the church in, too, at the dart.
I knew
So anyway, I wanted to say something to you guys. I've been listening to everybody talk about evolution, and I was wondering, I was watching a show that all dogs actually derive from the gray wolf. And as the show was going on, they actually showed that a gray wolf couldn't be domesticated from a baby wolf on up, because by the second or third month, the wolf would actually start jumping on the table and actually start acting wild again, and it couldn't actually tame the thing. But some people in Russia actually took a bunch of wolves and segregated them and actually raised them up from babies over years, and within 5 or 10 years or 15 years, I think it's been 50 years in the mix now, these dogs, the wolves actually start changing shape. Their noses start changing. They actually start looking like dogs. After a long period of time, they start I actually saw it on TV where the wolves are actually starting to change.
How many generations does this take?
A long period of time of domestication.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking to myself, I always hear these guys say these monkeys don't turn into humans. However, it's the same thing as the gray wolf. You don't see gray wolves turning into dogs in the woods. It takes a long period of time for the gray wolf to actually be domesticated. I just wanted to get that out there, and I also wanted to say, too, if the church is listening right now down in Austin, you guys talk about transitional forms. That I always read in the Bible, Ezekiel 1:4 and a bunch of other locations where they're always talking about transitional forms. The guy had the head of a human and the arms of a wings of an eagle and the legs of a calf, and all these transitional forms in the Bible. It seems as if the Bible talks more about things that are mixed with animals than the evolutionists do.
It was a creepy time, wasn't it?
Isn't that true?
Well, hang on, we're feeding back again.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can. Just a little bit of feedback over your last thing. Yeah, well, the Bible was written during a pre-scientific and very strange time. It would have been a time in human history that would be completely alien to us and our way of thinking. So it's certainly not surprising that there are a lot of things in that book that are just patently bizarre when you read them.
Of course, a creationist would say about the wolf example that, the wolf is still a wolf. You cannot cross kinds, which is interesting because there is no scientifically recognized term kinds.
Yeah, it's not actual taxonomical.
We know, like, there's Linnaean classification like species and genus and family, but even those are considered by scientists to be extremely blurry because, the definition of species is basically something that can't or won't interbreed with any other species. But even that gets blurry because actually there are grasshoppers which are considered different species because they play different kinds of songs that don't attract each other. And so they would be physically capable of interbreeding, but they don't.
Yeah. Another thing about the whole, this confusion. Go ahead.
That wasn't the subject I haven't been able to get a hold of you guys for 2 months, so I'm kind of excited. I wanted to give you guys some information. You guys got a pen and paper on you?
Okay, yeah.
I have a computer.
I want you to write this down. I hear a lot of atheists calling in, and they always want to argue against these Christians because I debate against them all the time. I pretty much pull the big guns out on them when I come to a debate too. But write this down. Write down Skeptic Annotated Bible.
Oh yeah, we go there all the time.
Yeah, skepticsannotatedbible.com.
You get that all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, and I also wanted to say one thing. When they say God. If we had a creator, you guys always mention God having a creator. If you really look at what words are utterances, noises, and symbols that describe thoughts, feelings, and experiences that men created or some kind of object. So if you take the word God and you write it on a piece of paper, you can't write the word first and then put the action and the experience and the thought to the word. You actually have to have the thought, the feeling, and the experience first before you have a symbol to describe these things, or an object like a king or an idol, before they actually decided to start praying to some god that didn't exist, or an invisible god in the sky. So I always say, if you want me to show you where God really came from, I'll write it down on a piece of paper. This symbol came from our thoughts, feelings, and experiences. So let me show you how to get rid of them. You turn the eraser around and erase God off the board and say, now where's your God? And I look at these guys that I'm debating against, and I say, now you're only stuck with the human that first created the thought, feeling, and experience that created the symbol on the paper anyway.
Yeah,
and then, of course,
I mean,
if you want to turn that God into a Christian God or a Chinese God or whatever God you want to turn it into, that's up to you. But it all derived from our thoughts, our feelings, and experiences. And if you do good thoughts, feelings, and experiences, you're going to create good symbols to describe them. If you do bad things, or you want to blame some mean old crappy guy like the devil for all the stuff that you do, you can use that symbol to blame all your bullshit on.
Yeah. Hey, Joseph, we've only got an hour-long show, and I think we're going to have to move on to some other callers.
I mean, we
now.
appreciate you want to get all that out, and thanks everything, but we are limited for time. But yeah, but thanks a bunch.
Yeah,
and,
thanks for calling.
We still need to see if these phones work, but feel free again.
Obviously they work.
Well, but they may not work for every line. We still don't know yet. So
anyway, see you.
Yeah. So, but thanks for calling.
I can't hear you guys that well anyway. Hey guys, just thanks for letting me on. I mean, I might call it some other time. They'd be able to talk. So.
All right. See you later. And I do think it's important not to confuse the concept of a thing with the thing itself.
Yeah, the map is not the place.
You know, if I say like my cat, the written word my cat is based on a concept that I have of my cat. But the cat itself actually maps out to something that exists in the real world, and this is kind of a confusion that I think a lot of people have with God, especially when they say things like, the very fact that you're talking about God means that you understand what it is and therefore it must exist. And it's like, no, we have real and imaginary concepts, and what we're really trying to get at here as atheists is, does the concept of God map onto something that can be shown to be real? And all the verbal hand waving about transcendental and physical stuff will not create that God out of whole cloth. Some evidence would be nice.
Yeah, and it all comes down to the very same question that I ask every Christian I talk to, which is, how can you demonstrate that the God you believe in is real and not simply something that exists in your imagination? I mean, and the key word there is demonstrate.
Right. And of course, when it comes to Ray Comfort, since our previous caller mentioned Ray Comfort has a $10,000 challenge, that's a challenge to convince Ray Comfort that evolution is real.
And
I would not attempt that. I would fail at that, definitely.
And all pleading for politeness aside, if you're getting your information about evolutionary biology from Ray Comfort, you're a freaking idiot. All right, because Ray Comfort is a scientifically illiterate fool, and he's a liar. I mean, he's a deliberate, bald-faced liar. The point, he has had professional biologists, well-known scientists, explain to him in detail exactly how a certain concept in evolutionary biology works. And he turns right around and claims, no one's ever explained this thing.
Yeah, and it's not just...
So it's all about, la, 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 I can't hear you with him.
Yeah.
And he is patently dishonest. I mean,
it's not just that I require him to agree with me, that I require him to accept what scientists say, but when he hears what actual scientists say about how evolution is supposed to work, and then he says, science says that there should be a crocoduck.
which of course it
then
does not.
He just doesn't understand what people are saying to him, and the fact that he thinks that the lack of a crocoduck proves that evolution doesn't work
there are no
means that he's
fossils.
Just not freaking paying attention.
Yeah. It's the people who say there are no transitional fossils don't know what transitional fossils are. They think in terms of things like crocoduck. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for something that's like half fish and half person. But that's not what the theory says.
So, what I recommend, rather than watching some schmoes on TV, is to pick up a textbook or a popularized book from a scientist who explains how evolution works. Not because I want to make you believe that evolution works, but I would like you to be arguing against what evolution really says, which has converged to a particular explanation because it's science, and and people tend to move towards agreement rather than 38,000 sects.
Sure. But it also comes down to, who are you going to listen to, right? I mean, who are you going to get your information about biology from? Actual biologists? or someone who is emphatically not a biologist, but a preacher. If something is wrong with your car, are you going to get an opinion from mechanics as to what's wrong with your car? Or are you going to talk to your tinfoil hat neighbor who says, well, I think it's the Illuminati teleporting gremlins under the hood of your car to make it all messed up?
I mean,
who are you going to take seriously?
I'm sure that the love of Jesus could heal my engine when it's not working. But frankly, I find it more reliable to take it to a mechanic who actually knows what he's doing and will actually take direct actions to fix the car rather than saying incantations to an invisible man in the sky.
So they're saying, if you think you have a legitimate criticism of a scientific theory, be sure to actually learn what the scientific theory actually is and what it actually says. Yeah, and don't just critique straw mans of it. But anyway, let's take another call.
Okay. I'm not sure whether to take this one or not.
Which one?
Number 2.
Well, I mean, just pick one.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. All right, Keith in Flemington, you're there.
We're so professional here.
Hello?
Keith?
You're on the air, if you can hear us or not.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I called in a couple weeks ago, and I spoke to one of you, I think, about the out-of-body experiences. And I'm atheist as well, and this is the one thing that I have to say that I really struggle with a lot of. There's a lot of scientists that are actually putting together, not scientists but doctors, putting together projects to actually test out these theories because they're saying they're so overwhelming that they really don't feel that this is just an hallucination anymore. And I put together some sites. I don't know if you guys are able to check these out, or I was getting together an email to send to Matt based on there's projects going on and scientists that are actually looking into. I don't know if you have ever heard of Dr. Andrew Newmark. He's a neuroscientist.
Name rings a vague bell,
and they have a lot of scientific theories, and they're actually taking it seriously on how life-changing a lot of this stuff has been for thousands of people. And if you just want one website, I don't want to take up so much of your time. There's one website, it's the International Association for Near-Death Studies, and it's IANDS.org. Like I said, I think the whole 9 yards, religion, the whole 9 yards. I just think it's all bogus. I really do, and I'm not for it. But when I look into this, and I'm completely coming from a non-biased standpoint, when I look into this stuff, it just seems so like there's something there that's just Right.
Well, that is.
I would be stupid not to look into it. It just
can I recommend a site for you in return?
I'm sorry? Can
I recommend a site for you in return?
Absolutely.
Skeptics Dictionary, skepdic.com, and Google and search it for near-death experiences and see what you come up with.
Right. But yeah, that apart, we don't deny that people have experiences that are strange and inexplicable and that are life-changing. Just because an experience is life-changing doesn't mean that it is an experience necessarily rooted in reality. It could just be something that went on. I mean, if that were the case, right, then you would have to say, well, religion changes people's lives, therefore the religion must be true. So there has to be a greater body of actual tangible evidence that can be studied. Now, we do know that the experience of the out-of-body experience has been replicated through electrical stimulation of a part of the brain called the angular gyrus, which would seem to indicate that there's a lot of it that's neurochemical, right? And it's just like when people would trip out on LSD and they say, oh, I've had this amazing spiritual experience with no, you had a chemical experience, right? I mean, brain chemistry, you can mess with it and it can do some amazing stuff and alter your perception of reality. So what we need to get to the bottom of is what's happening in an out-of-body experience happening in reality, or is it simply the individual's perception of reality being skewed by something going on with their brain chemistry? Now, either way, it can be a life-changing event, but a life-changing event doesn't necessarily prove that it's not just all in the mind.
Right.
So now, on the one hand, I think that a legitimate scientific study ought to be done in what might be thought of as I don't know if you'd call this a paranormal claim or just extraordinary claims. Sure, why not, right? There could be legitimate scientific study done into the possible existence of this or ghosts or auras or whatever, the du jour thing is going on right now. My worry, though, is that you can get people, and even people with legitimate scientific credentials, just because you've got a PhD in a scientific field is not an automatic sort of deflector shield against irrationality, right? And there are people who can go into these things with some biases. And what their studies end up as turns out to be some big exercise in confirmation bias. And so it's tricky to guard against that. And fortunately, the scientific method has peer review, which is the built-in way of guarding against that, right? I mean, that's how we caught cold fusion, and that's how we caught, how those results were all bogus, right?
Yeah, so it's not really about a chemical change that they're really trying to look into. It really, there's a lot more to it than just that. Last time I called in, there was a guy that called in afterwards, and he's like, oh yeah, I had out-of-body experiences, I set up a playing card, and I couldn't find a playing card or whatever. But these are these are actually studies that are being done that actually tell the tale of somebody actually looking into another room of what's going on while they're supposedly dead or asleep, or the blood's been drained out of their brain for this certain procedure to take out.
Well, I think they would kill a guy actually if you did that, but
and they're actually telling what's going on or actually reporting as to what happened in another room, or
But again, you need to
just a hallucination, and that's why they set up. They set up. It's called the Aware Project.
Right, but I mean, the point of the card thing was that this is a specific thing that you can test, rather than whether one thing's on a card or another thing's on a card.
Right.
This is a specific thing where you can objectively say, yes, absolutely, it was the two of spades. Whereas if the person, you're in a non-controlled situation where the person happens to luckily describe something that resembles what's in a room, that's not so easy to be objective about. So, I mean, there are a lot of ways that these supposed studies can actually go wrong, and then, the other good thing about the card is that there's a very, very, very low probability that you could actually consistently read or guess what a card is, whereas there is a high probability that you could guess that a particular person is in a room who's frequently there anyway. I mean, even dreams, actual dreams can generally, they often seem to be prophetic because we dream about stuff that we have experience with, and we ignore all the times that we have dreams that don't relate to anything that really happened. When we have a dream based on our own experiences about something that turns out later to have happened, then we tend to pay special attention to the hits and ignore the misses.
And then when you've had,
Can I just say one thing?
Okay. And then we're going to move on.
If you guys will look it up at some point, it's called the Aware Project, and that's being put out. And what they're doing is they're putting images. They're called targets, and they're putting them face up on the ceiling of 6 different hospitals.
Okay.
And the doctors are very skeptical, and they're thinking that it's going to come out as a wash, that nobody's going to be able to do it or whatever. And I'm kind of in the same boat. I just find it very interesting that they even bother, scientists and doctors, that they're even devoting time to this.
Well, I mean, why shouldn't they bother?
I'm glad that they're bothering.
Yeah, I mean, if there's legitimate, I mean, sure. I mean, these things, if people are making these claims, then why not test them, right? And if they care to test them, then that's great. But as Russia, we were talking earlier about like this particular experiment that was done. Well, the one experiment isn't enough. Then if you get certain results that look good, now the trick becomes, can you replicate them?
You need a big sample set, and you need statistically very significant results.
You need a big body of evidence
to justify this,
and not just anecdotes either. You can't say, well, there was a dude in the room and he had a thing.
I heard some guy, or there can even be selection bias among studies where there may be 1,000 studies done trying to show some evidence of near-death experience, and one of them luckily happens to have a very high success rate. out of 1,000. So people cherry pick this one experiment. So, I mean,
those are all the kind of things you got to guard against. Anyway,
right.
Let's move on.
Anyway, yeah. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, appreciate it very much.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Bye. To remind people who are watching this show and not the Super Bowl, we're a lot of cool people who you can come and hang out with after the show. Even people from Mark's church, as long as they're coming just to hang out and be friendly and not proselytize at us, because we enjoy our Mexican food.
Yeah, definitely.
And that is at El Arroyo, which I hope they will put the address up on the screen in just a minute, because I lost my announcements on here.
It's all right.
But yeah, come on down. It's on 6th Street, I believe, and have some dinner with us. And seriously, Mark, we're sorry.
Yeah.
Call back next week. People who are watching from Mark's church today, thank you. We're just trying to get a point of view out there. We're not trying to steal your babies. And we hope you keep watching.
Yeah. We didn't want that to happen. We didn't mean to lose your audio there. So
I would have given Mark like most of the show.
Sure.
If he had stuck around.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Right,
we got Matt in
10
South
minutes left.
Carolina. It's about 10 minutes left. Probably 7.
Well, Matt,
Hello,
can you
Matt?
hear us?
Maybe it is line 4. No, that's line 3.
Matt on line.
Matt.
Can you hear us, Matt, on line 3?
I'm sorry. Yeah. Hello?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear us? You're on.
Hi. It's really difficult to hear you. Hold on. Okay. I wanted to ask a question about morality. Basically, if God has a different morality than us, say a better one, or a one with a different sense of good, then how is it that we can judge him on his actions? And that's basically it.
Well, if we can't judge him, then how do you know it's better?
Well, that's the point. I'm personally I'm an atheist. I'm just trying to answer this question in a conversation with someone else.
Is this a theist who has said this to you, that we can't? God's morality is different than ours, so we can't judge it? Is that his argument?
I mean, if we have, essentially, we can't judge God on his actions because we only have our own. We only have our own reasoning and such. And
but if this God is the source of our morals, if he believes that this God is the source of our morals, then it's like, well, why did God create a whole separate set of morals for us to abide by that are different from his? Why would he have done that? I mean, I mean, it's completely irrational. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he actually supports the idea that we can come to our own morals.
In which case, why do we need God?
Not drive them from the Bible.
All right.
Right. I mean, I've got a problem with this separate morality thing in that, people really need to do what makes sense to their moral system. Because, I mean, hypothetically, let's say that it turns out that God, the God of the universe, does not actually hold a special place for humans. He actually, his chosen creatures are space aliens from, 1,000 light years away. But the reason that in his divine plan he created the earth and all humans is because we are, in about 1,000 years from now, we are destined to make a tasty snack on the way across through this galaxy. If that were part of God's divine purpose, I don't think we have an obligation to stick to his plan. I think actually that as our own autonomous individuals, we would be morally obligated to still fight the aliens and the God. Because I mean, why is that morality right? And the morality that we have collectively come to as a society and basically agreed on, I mean, the stuff that is pretty much no-brainers for anyone living in a civilized country, like don't kill and don't steal, which predated the Bible by quite a lot. Why is that not a reasonable moral system to come to instead of this supernatural being?
Yeah, no, that's a good answer.
Thanks.
All right.
Hope you use it well.
Took care of that one.
Okay.
Thanks for calling. We appreciate it, Matt.
Bye.
We really do. Thanks a lot. And
We got Mike in Chicago.
yeah, we have.
And we got like
5 minutes.
4 or 5 minutes left.
Yeah. Okay.
Mike.
Hello?
Hi, Mike.
You're on.
Hey, how you doing?
We're good. You sound clear. That's nice.
All right, so this is the situation I find myself in. All through high school and part of college, I had a lot of rationally thinking friends not a while ago. But now I've transferred into a Christian college, and one of the requirements is a Bible studies class. And so I want to remain firm and not just get walked over. But I was wondering you guys must have experience with being, overwhelmed by the amount of opposing arguments there are. What do you guys have?
Not especially.
Trick to, get through,
Well,
Why are you in a Christian college?
yeah, that's.
I'm in a Christian college because their nursing program is one of the best around.
Okay.
And so it's one of those things where, what do I value more? The excellent nursing program or the other stuff?
Yeah, I mean, that is the question. It's really up to you to answer. I mean, I'm sure that it is
It's a
not
shame
the
that- yeah.
only school with a good nursing program.
Yeah, I mean,
but
it's a
can
shame that they
understand.
sort of hold their nursing program hostage to people, on the condition that you have to take their Bible study classes. But that unfortunately is how they work. It's like, oh, you want the benefits? Well, you have to do this bit. Right. So, but all that aside, I think that you can really only is there a specific argument that you have gotten in the class up to this point that has been sort of a stumper for you?
I don't know if we have time
We may
for
not have,
specific arguments, but what I would say in general is maybe what Sun Tzu would say is do not attack the enemy where he is strong. I don't particularly see that you're obligated to take on an entire room full of people who are just going to bark at you. I think that the best you can hope for is to maybe educate yourself and maybe some fellow students one-on-one. But listen to what people are saying and then read up on them afterwards from the comfort of your own home when you're not being pressured, and have some personal chats with individuals that you think are potential allies.
Yeah. There are a lot of really good online resources that are devoted to critiquing common apologetics. There's infidels.org, which has the whole
Iron Chariots.
Iron Chariots, I was going to mention. Iron Chariots Wiki, which is, again, the Counter-Apologetics Wiki. And these are all offering very detailed rebuttals to the most common apologetic points that are made.
Right.
But it could be a very useful class in that you will hear what their arguments are firsthand, right from the horse's mouth.
Right.
And the cliche about the one lone student who bravely stands up in the room full of his, full of the evil professor and the, in the room full of hostile people and completely shames him, that's mostly just Jack Chick's fantasy life.
Right.
So I wouldn't assume that you can do that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's like I wouldn't have had a problem with it if it weren't for some of the things that the teacher's saying, and you just look around the classroom and everyone's just like nodding, like, "Oh yeah, that makes perfect sense."
I'm sorry, but we are out of time. We're really out of time. So hang on, I'll put you on hold, and maybe you can come back. But anyway, that's our show.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for
sorry again about the phones,
watching.
but it happens here.
And people from church, feel free to keep watching and calling, and bye.
Bye.